right next to each other, you change the envelope so you can hear each individual one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So finding the right, that really controls the timbre, whether it's a continuous sound or rhythmic or something in between.
Okay. And then with the black and stone one, you had an envelope that were all really similar, so you couldn't really tell.
Exactly. So I was going for a continuous sound with that. I think, I don't remember the exact numbers, but for the sake of argument, say there were 50 milliseconds, but there was a grain called 15 milliseconds. So you would have several grains overlapping at once, getting you that continuous sound.
For those of us who don't know a whole lot about computers, what operating systems are capable of? Do you need like a terminal to use it?
No, so Grace is the graphical front end for common music. Looks like this. And you know.
Okay, so I can run on Windows.
Yeah, Professor Taube runs on Windows.
I don't know the happy with you, but it'll run, yeah.
And it's easy. It's pretty easy to learn for people who don't have programming experiences as well. It's really well documented, and it's set up to do work well with music. More questions, comments?
When you, so I for granular synthesis, I've always been using a patch which I borrowed from someone else,
Like a
Mark
Mark's
David
patch?
Wholesale, yeah. And I've noticed that when you do transpose in various directions, the quality of the sound really deteriorates quite a bit. Have you found that that's better here, or is it about the same?
Well, my understanding with like doing kind of extreme pitch shifting beyond a little bit, if it's a recognizable sound source, human voice or an instrument, something that has formants that give it its particular character, when you start transposing it very far, it transposes the formants as well. So if you get the Alvin and Chipmunks effect. It makes it sound like you have a head that's this big if you transpose up 2 octaves. I know there are synthesis techniques that take this into account, but this doesn't address that in any particular way.
I mean, if I do transpose something up 2 octaves and transpose it back down, just, I mean, this is my work, if you wanted to test.
Oh, so like you've done something destructive to it and taking it back, and you notice a loss of quality?
The process of actually transposing deteriorates just sonic information to some degree.
I don't know, there's at the heart of Grani, doing translation, there's a function that does resampling. So it lets you take something at one sampling rate and take it up or down to a different sampling rate. I don't know in depth how that works or how well the DSP program that is. So I guess I can't answer your question. But I haven't noticed any particular loss in quality other than just the format issue. Lynn?
Is Grani Plus documented in any way?
Yeah, I've got. I'll bring it up real quick. I didn't want to go through this because the documentation is actually really pedantic. It just uses an oboe file, so you can see exactly what's happening. They all sound not exciting.
Right.
But yeah, I have a whole. I took Professor Lopez's source code and I documented it really well, I think. So it explains everything that's going on throughout it. I have my own comments in here. So if you're interested in the source code, there's that. And I also wrote out a tutorial file for it that I'll post up with everything else. Oh, this is saved wrong. Oh, okay. I have it saved somewhere else, but yeah, I have an example help file written out.
That goes through.
It runs through every parameter and has comments on everything, telling you how to use it and telling you what the intention of all the features is. Much more in depth than I've gotten to here.
Right. I mean, because I don't want you to bog down like the whole room with the technicalities of the syntax of your code. But that's one question in my mind is, oh, great, I could write my own function, but what do I do with the args and what I do? So that's in your tutorial.
Yeah, it's
file.
all explained in there.
Fantastic,
And,
okay.
of course, ask me anytime, I've been back to explain to you.
And I can hunt you down as well.
Yeah,
I'll shoot you
I
down.
wrote it with the intention that someone could just read it without having to find me and
Okay.
get it from me, how it works. It should be clear enough.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mark?
Let's say that you've specified some gesture and all the parameters of grains with a certain file. Maybe this is obvious, but I don't know, so I don't know. Could you then change what the source file was with that same specification?
Yeah, maybe it'd be as simple as changing the file, whatever the file.
And do you find that those two different approaches to making a sound are equal in terms of their effect?
Which two approaches?
Specifying the grain parameters and specifying the original file.
Well, depending on what you're having the program do, for granular synthesis, it's very, very signal dependent. So the character of the sound depends really heavily on the source file. This being said, I've had a lot of success maybe trying to get something, beating my head against the wall, it's not quite there, and then just randomly substituting something else and having great results. So, yeah, so you get very, very different behavior from the source file. And it's actually, I found that to be a really creatively rich thing to do, to just say, oh, well, this isn't working, let me just try something else. John?
You said something about regranularization when you take a grainy sounding file, like the Velcro sound, and then put it into the process. Have you considered or have you experimented with using already granulated files and putting them back through it again?
I did one thing with that. I didn't have it in my presentation. I had another circuit bent thing, or it was actually a speak and spell, and making these tiny little chirps. And I granularized that and took little grains out of it. Come to think of it, that might have been the source for the first example I couldn't find the source file for. I don't remember. But yeah, that would certainly doing successive layers of processing is.
Well, I just said that because you said regranularization, so.
Yeah, I put quotes around that because I was just trying to think of a word to describe it.
I do kind of have an off-topic question in that direction. When you do this circuit bending stuff, do you record it acoustically, or do you take a speak and spell it?
I've done both. I've recorded it directly into an audio interface, and I've also run it through my roommate's amp. I've actually found running through an amp colors it a little bit and takes care of all the artifacts. I mean, especially if you're circuit bending things, you get a lot of bleed over. You get parts of the circuit bleeding DC into stuff, and it's not really. Sometimes you have to address that if you record it digitally. You filter out really low frequencies, and you get these high hums that are like overshadowing other things. And I found running through guitar amp and miking that nice is a good compromise, and you get some good color from the guitar amp, and you smooth out those like the digital nonsense that you probably don't want to hear, but you might. I don't want to say no one, but I want to hear that piece. Lynn?
For, you had for future projects, you had an ideas question mark? So maybe, or I don't think this is possible yet, maybe it is, but taking grains from different sound files and cobbling up grains so you can do a synthesis with more than one source.
Oh, okay. Let me draw a quick picture from the board. Could you guys all see it if I draw over here?
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll draw high. So that's kind of what I was doing with the Velcro. So I took,
Oh, you can already do this?
it doesn't do it all in Grani Plus, but, so I have this input file. I broke it up and put it in Audacity or something, and put the grains equally spaced. And then Grani Plus, my function, knew to start at these points. So you could just as easily do that, or take the two files, just append them into one large file. If you're not dealing with tiny little grains, just append the two. Have a function to say, am I picking from the first half of the length or the second half?
Right.
Using the S-rate function argument.
Okay.
Yeah, that would actually, didn't have it in my presentation, but I tried to do something like that. And as kind of like a camera morphing thing, it
that's pretty effective.
Yeah.
But with the Velcro, you were choosing grains algorithmically or more stochastically?
Over the length of the gesture, I had it, I think I picked 8 grains, maybe it was 10. It's picking from different, I kind of arranged them in order of brightness. And in each portion of that gesture, you get a timbre shift because it's picking from a different subset of those.
How did you order in terms of brightness? Just by ear? Or
I tried to do it by looking at it in an FFT, so a sonic visualizer. And then
the computer didn't organize it that way for you?
No, that was by hand. And then, so I had created the source file in such a way that it would play nice with Grani Plus and make it so I didn't have to write a very complicated function to do pick them stochastically.
Your name's Steve Takasugi?
Excuse me?
Steve Takasugi?
No, I don't.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? John?
One more thing, when you say in Grani it's possible to make your envelope for a particular grain, but can you make an envelope encompass, say, multiple grains? Like, what if I wanted it to encompass 11 grains? Could I do that?
In the original Grani?
Yeah, or in your version, whichever.
So like an amplitude envelope or something? What kind of envelope?
Any envelope that you would want for anything.
The only two kinds of envelopes that you have in the original Grani are an envelope for the parameter over the length of the entire note, and amplitude envelopes for each grain.
So then an amplitude envelope is for, say, 11 grains, could I do that?
The only way you could do that is by carefully, editing your overall amplitude envelope to just have that effect. It'd be pretty simple to write it as a function in Grani Plus. Just have a counter that says, for these 11 grains, I'm going to look through this envelope, this lookup table. So that's an example of something you'd be able to do in the new version. Not too much work. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I think that's it. Thank everyone for coming. It's okay. Thanks.
Huh?